So the reason why this is so important to me is because I also don't want to be a bystander anymore. I have recently posted that tolerance is not love. And you could absolutely refer to this in many aspects of your life, whether it has to do with family, friendships, relationships, whatever it is. Tolerance is not love. They are not the same thing. And honestly, you can relate this to many aspects in life. But for me growing up, I felt that not much bothered me. And that actually was the thing that bothered me. Like, bothered me that I was never bothered. Isn't that funny? And the reason why that is because it made me feel indifferent. And indifference, I'll give you the definition because I love definitions and learning shit. Indifference, number one, is the trait of lacking enthusiasm, interest in things generally. Excuse me, the trait of lacking enthusiasm or interest in things generally. Tone matters, and so does cadence. Number two, it means unbiased, impartial, or unconcerned. Number three, apathy, demonstrated by an absence of emotional reactions. And after reading that, I'm definitely not somebody who's indifferent, but I am, like, in general, I'm not indifferent. However, I absolutely have done that at points throughout my life, because I think we all do sometimes. I just think it's something that becomes you. But if it's something that you maintain, hopefully you could, look at your life and see why that is. Anyway. And I love this example because it's fun. The thing that helped me best realize that I'm not indifferent, but in fact accepting of my childhood sensibility toward the things that I can't control, like worrying or fear. Again, this is you projecting like your fears into the future. Anxiety is like projecting your fears into the future instead of living in the present. And the thing that helped me realize this was the opening scene to like one of the dopest movies ever. And that is the Boondock Saints. So if you have never seen this movie, please finish this video. But as soon as you do, go watch that movie. Go watch the podcast and then go watch that movie, and you'll understand what I mean about indifference. Anyway. So for anyone that hasn't seen it, please just watch it. It is a cult classic. It is a cinematic phenom, in my opinion, featuring two hilarious, ridiculous Irish brothers who are crazy badasses. Love this shirt. Crazy badasses. And what they do is they're actually taking out like evil gangsters in South Boston. So even though the story is fictional, the opening scene to the movie is what I'm getting at with what's called the Bystander Effect. And if you've never heard of this, I'm going to give you the background on this because it is a true phenomenon. And it was coined in the late 60s and mainly very associated with the true story that I'm about to go over with you. And this is really sad. But I won't ruin the end of the movie. Like, seriously watch it. Seriously watch it. But the opening scene is the brothers waking up in their very minimal, dirty apartment and going off to mass. They like grabbed their wooden crosses on like this little hook that's in the apartment, like put it on, and then they're out the door. And I think like throughout the movie they wear like the same jeans and t-shirt. It's just hilarious. Anyway, so they go off to mass, and before heading to work at a meat packing facility, the priest who is giving his sermon And of course, for anyone who has issues with religious context or doesn't like that word, I'll say this. That is an anecdote or a moral of the story of the day. Okay. Although the movie is a fictional screenplay, the priest uses a true example, which coined the real cultural phenomenon, which is called the bystander effect. Please look that up. It's really a crazy story. But the phenomenon is a very true thing, and I'm pretty certain most people have either experienced it or seen it in their lives. Essentially, what the bystander effect is, it is a phenomenon where individuals are less likely to help someone in distress when there are a group of people around. And this is compared to when they're alone. So when you're around a group of people and you see somebody, let's just say, being attacked, you have a tendency to not help them. But if let's say you're alone in an alley with somebody and they're walking slightly ahead of you, and then you see somebody walk down the alley and start attacking them, because you know you're the only person in that alley with that person, typically people have a tendency to then get involved. Okay, so in a group of people have a tendency to just assume that somebody else is going to take responsibility. Sorry, my phone's about to die. I should probably plug that in so I can get done with, so I can continue this. All right, give me a second. Ooh, okay. All right. Okay. So I'll read it to you. Sorry about that. I'll read it to you. So essentially, the bystander effect is a phenomenon where individuals are less likely to help someone in distress when they are in a group of people. This is compared to when they are alone. It is a diffusion of responsibility and social influence. So those are the two factors that create that phenomenon. It is a diffusion of responsibility. Number one, being around a group of people and thinking that somebody else is going to do the help out. And number two, social influence. Okay, so I'm going to talk about both of those super quick. This means that if somebody is being attacked, like the real story of what started this phenomenon, which is the real story of a young woman named Kitty Genovese. And this happened in 1964. It was a highly publicized murder, and please read about it. Kitty, Kitty, her last name is Genovese, Genov as in Victor, Es as in Sam, Genovese. And so she was attacked and murdered outside of her apartment building while 38 bystanders, they stood by and they watched. Each individual assuming that somebody else would take responsibility for helping. And so instead, no one helped, and she had an audience for her demise. I want you to think about that, because that is truly heartbreaking and disgusting, honestly. I mean, we got to take care of each other, you know? So that is considered the diffusion of responsibility. When there's a lot of people around, you just assume somebody else is going to do it. The second part of this phenomenon is called social influence. And that is the presence of others can lead to a sense of conformity, causing individuals to follow the actions of those around them rather than acting independently. So essentially what that is that social influence is when you're in a group of people, you have a tendency to conform to what that group of people are doing, are saying, and it's really, rather than, acting for yourself or what you think might be right. Okay? So, indifference is truly, in my opinion, a worse sin than, just picking a side that you may deem good or bad. It's actively not choosing. And I think that hurts all of us. And the reason why I mention this is because if you are, let's say, not choosing to vote, for example, because I did this for many years, I never thought my vote mattered. I never thought my opinion mattered. I just assumed that the world was just going to keep going, and I especially being in a state, and there's nothing wrong with this, but being in a state that is very blue. I mean, very much. And who knows if it really is, but if you choose not to vote, I mean, how is that good? And before you do so, like, I encourage everybody to register to vote if you haven't or have not, because I think this election is really important. And it's important because of a lot of the things that I've already said tonight. And I'll get more into that in just a minute. But it's important. It's important to be involved in how you want your life to go. We don't want to be taxed to the gills for, I'll just take an example, for like government programs. Now, I'm not saying all of them, but like so many programs that, are they really helping everybody? I mean, I'd like to see an audit of those things, just for my curiosity. I'm just curious about that. Anyway, and in my opinion, I think that really hurts all of us when we are indifferent and we just decide not to do anything about anything, because I was that person for a really long time. And I've said this before, but I love people so much that I just, it just seems wrong to remain quiet about these sorts of things, because I want people to feel loved. I want people to feel accepting. I want people to feel like they have a voice. But I'll remind you one more time, like, tolerance is not love. So, you could take that however you want to. And what I'm referring to, though, is it's not entirely directed towards any individuals who feel a certain way about themselves, because personal responsibility is necessary and should be practiced daily. So I encourage you to do that. Personal responsibility will save your life. Taking responsibility for the things in your own life, whether it be your healing, whether it be getting a new job, whether it be, doing the laundry because you've been putting it off for weeks, just doing those things, just doing chores actually makes people feel better about themselves. And so, like, you do little habits. There's a great book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he even has an email, I think every other Monday or something like that. I don't really remember, but I think it's called like 3-2-1. Anyway, great book. And he kind of talks about creating little habits over time so that those little habits really become, can do big things in your own life.